Welcome to the Diet Doc Life Mastery Podcast. I'm Kori Probst here with Dr. Joe Klemczewski. Good morning, Joe.
What's up, Kori?
How are you?
Great, great. Coming off a nice weekend. How about you?
Yeah, I'm very well. Thank you. I finally got to get outside and ride my bike. It's just been raining non-stop here in California. I'm complaining, but we actually really need it. It's gorgeous and green here. But science or fiction today, and we're talking supplements.
Supplements.
Which can be a really confusing and overwhelming topic because there's just so much information out there and a lot of it not great information. So where do we start here?
Well, it is one of the top questions. As soon as you or I work with a client in their initial program setup, it's probably one of the top 2 or 3 questions we get. You know, by the way, here's everything I take. Is this okay? What should I take? How much? And it's just part of the process that I know I'm going to be going through a list saying this is, okay, this is probably not worth your money and blah, blah, blah. So we did a podcast on vitamins and I think it was pretty well received. People started looking at that more diligently. So thought we would shoot a quick video on supplements in general.
Perfect. Okay. So what's the first question we should be asking ourselves when it comes to supplementation?
Well, I think the first question I get from clients is even what is the definition of a supplement? Some people think, a protein bar is a supplement or protein powder is a supplement or, my steroids are supplements. You could run the gamut. But so my initial thoughts is to help clients understand that you can divide supplements into 2 broad categories, nutritional supplements versus medicinal supplements. So first of all, I don't consider something like protein powder a supplement. It's kind of a food replacement. It's made from food, from different types of protein sources. But when you get into a nutritional supplement, does your body actually use this for a function? So if I take creatine, for example, probably the most known supplement out there, that is an enzyme that my body endogenously produces, and its role is to resynthesize ATP as that's used in the muscle cell. So, that has nutritional value. That's something my body uses. Amino acids, whether they are essential amino acids, branched chain amino acids, same thing. They're simply, partitioned levels of actual protein sources. Even if they're synthetically made, your body treats them as a nutritional product versus something medicinal that you take, and it's a chemical substance that makes your body react in a certain way.
Some examples of those?
Well, so an example might be something like, let's say some of those prohormones like a tribulus or something. You take this and it stimulates your body. If you're a responder or a hyper responder, it stimulates your body to produce more testosterone. It is not testosterone. It's not an actual hormone. It forces your body or stimulates your body to create it on its own accord. So that's the difference between nutritional and medicinal. And the only reason I bring that up is because I want people to start thinking from the top down. Is there a reason I should be afraid of this supplement? Is there, is this something my body's going to use? And if so, even how much? In our vitamin podcast, Kori, we talked about how, something like vitamin C or vitamin E can be very protective at this dose, but you take a higher dose and it actually causes cancer or increases your risk of heart disease. So we have to look at supplements pretty seriously. And I just, get a little nervous when I see people just loading up entire lists full of things that they take because they think they have to.
Yeah. Well, so what's interesting to me is, and I want to ask you this, Joe, because most people on the planet are eating the standard American diet, which is not nutrient dense. I would say that those individuals could benefit from supplementation. But a lot of the people who we're working with, many of them are competitors. They're paying a bit more attention to the nutrients that they're consuming. what are the supplements and that they would benefit from, and why would you recommend them? Am I getting us off track here, or?
No, I think,
Okay.
this is where I think you really have to do research, because, I just spoke at a camp in West Virginia, and when we went to some Q&A, of course, questions come up. Hey, should I take this? Should I take that? Everybody wants to go right into those fine details, because like you said, our training and our diet and our nutrition, those are the majors. That's what we should be focusing on. That's where 95 to 99% of our result can come from. But we're so driven toward that magical little pill that might just be the answer for us.
Yes.
And so, if I answered your question like, hey, somebody says I should take
CoQ10.
Yes, CoQ10. Because it's good for my brain or good for my heart, I would initially ask them, well, what have you read about it? How many research studies? What does the compendium of research say? And of course, nobody's even looked that stuff up. So it's often very interesting. I remember when I spoke with Eric Helms in Tasmania last year, I think it was D-aspartic acid, which a lot of people take for testosterone production. He said, all the magazines are full of those articles, right? And so that's going to immediately be your panacea.
It's in the headlines, yeah.
Yeah, he said, but there are very few studies that even show that it increases testosterone. He said there are studies that show it does nothing to testosterone, and there are studies that show it actually decreases your testosterone. So what are you going to believe? And, are you going to be willing to take the responsibility and look at all these things? So that would be the next step, I would say, Kori, is you can go to Google Scholar, you can go to PubMed, you can go to consumerlabs.com.
There's a really, examine.com is a really great one too, that lists all of the studies too that have been done on the various supplements. Yeah.
So I did a little search just for fun, just to show people how ill-researched some of these things are.
Okay.
You know the answer to this. What is the most researched supplement in the sport industry?
I would say either creatine, probably creatine.
Yeah. I mean, it's been the topic of just thousands and thousands of university studies because they're interested. Is it safe for kids? Is it good for a track athlete? And on and on and on. So Google Scholar has almost 700,000 entries for creatine. Okay. Guess how much for Viagra they have?
50? I don't know.
80,000. So almost 700,000 for creatine, 80,000 for Viagra, meaning, actual studies. We're so trusting, so to speak, that we think if this has got through the FDA and all that stuff, that it's probably been well studied. But, who's going to actually study that unless you have a financial interest?
Right.
And so, I even looked at things, I cross-referenced even over to PubMed, because something like Google Scholar, a lot of people are just going to look for articles written about it, scholarly articles, but actual research over in PubMed, falls from almost 800,000 for creatine to about 60,000. And so now you're getting into actual research where you can look at this, and hopefully there are some meta analyses you can check out. But you mentioned examine.com, and I think very similar to consumerlabs.com, those are places where they really garner the research that looks at safety and efficacy. They're trying to make sure that these are places you can go to not waste your money and to make sure you're not going to hurt yourselves. So I think that's an important thing that we need to consider.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I do have one other point I wanted to make, and this is on just anecdotal evidence. Because a lot of people frown on that. They say, well, that could be just placebo. You got to wait until there are infinite amount of research articles. And I think there are really ways that you can figure some things out for yourself if you're sensitive to all of the variables, including placebo effect.
Yeah. But
you might not know if you are a responder or not. So I would ask you, Kori, have you ever noticed a difference when you take something like any supplement from creatine on up? I mean, do you physically know, I don't know why, but this really does work for me?
Yes. Caffeine. Especially, I mean, that's a supplement, right?
It definitely is.
Especially during my long endurance training sessions, you know, yes, massive difference.
And it is an ergogenic supplement. So studies show when you take caffeine, you produce more work. It's not that you just feel better. It's actually ergogenic.
So this is one that we haven't mentioned. Citrusel.
Yeah.
Yes, I noticed a significant difference taking Citrusel. I do take creatine, not all the time, but I can't say that I've noticed a significant difference with creatine. I know I have a lot of clients who are convinced that they retain water on creatine, and that's kind of a sort of a negative side effect for them. They don't like that. I don't know that that actually occurs. But
yeah, and you know, some of those little things like that could be just perception.
right.
Even if they're in kind of a little bit of a loading phase and they are retaining a little bit of water for a day or two, they may be really sensitive to feeling that, but it could go away within a week or so. But you know, to your point, there are things that I know I am an absolute hyper responder to, like creatine. From the very beginning, when this stuff came out 25 years ago, I mean, talk about a result in just strength and muscle fullness, muscle hardness, because it does help you retain intracellular water. And every time I've, you know, gone off creatine for a while, and then I decided I'm gonna start back up, just instant, you know, noticeable gains. And that would be very physiological, because, you know, maybe it's because I don't eat as much animal protein, and so I don't get as much natural creatine.
Right.
Maybe my body just doesn't produce that much. I mean, my liver enzymes always tend to be lower, et cetera. So there's something that makes that work, but I'm not going to get like liver biopsies, muscle biopsies, and all of these things. So I think it's okay when there is enough research to try things.
Well, that's a really good point, Joe. I mean, I've been off it for about 3 months now, and I have stopped eating animal protein. So it might really make a difference at this point, and I might notice some significant changes.
Do you remember when all the pro hormones were coming out, the androstenedione and all that stuff, 15 or so years ago? So before those were you know, not accepted in WADA and in other, you know, drug-free organizations, everybody was just trying them. And I was, again, just an absolute hyper responder. I could take those things and instantly was getting stronger, feeling the difference, even would get more acne and things like that. And in the studies, though, the studies would show, if you looked at those early initial findings, that some subjects had absolutely zero response. Some subjects had almost 350% increases in testosterone.
Wow.
Because these were things that your body actually converted directly into testosterone. So again, think of that person who can take it forever and get zero response, and then somebody who's getting a 300% response.
Super interesting.
You're not going to know that unless you try it. You're not going to know where you fall on that scale. So I think there's plenty of room for anecdotal trial and error, as long as you're realistic and sensitive to those changes. As a science-minded person, I tend to almost have an anti-confirmation bias. Like, when I try these things, I assume it's not going to work. I plan for it not to work. I don't think it's going to work. So if it has any effect whatsoever, I'm going to notice it. I'm not like all Mr. Giddy thinking, oh, I found this new supplement, it's going to change my life.
Well, yeah, you've talked about you take cordyceps prior to your morning training sessions, and you notice a significant difference.
Like Usain Bolt difference.
Joe's going to the Olympics.
So, Kori, that's all I want to do. I mean, I knew in a podcast, there's no way we could just go through lists and check mark, like, take this, don't take that. It's a matter of everybody understanding that, you know, first of all, why are you taking this? What is promised? What do you know about it? Have you looked even in a cursory way at places where they have real research. I mention this all the time, but if you just go to normal news feeds, you're just going to see them recycling the same headlines. Every single blogger and author is just regurgitating headlines they've gotten somewhere else. Go to serious research and start looking at these things. At least spend a couple hours reading before you decide to spend your money and risk your health taking something.
Really, really expensive. Not to mention, like you said, the possible harmful health effects. But
yeah. I mean, some of the things we'll never know. Some of these supplements come and go so quickly. But I think there's.
Would you say too, though, that first, like if we're talking health here, first look at your diet.
Of course, absolutely.
First look at your nutrition.
Yeah. We mentioned that at the beginning, but then just skipped right over to this. Right. I mean, absolutely. That's why, interestingly, Google Scholar and PubMed only have a couple thousand entries for multivitamins, again, because they just assume, like who's going to study this? We know until recently, when it's been really coming into question, that we have enough information. And on all these little tiny supplements that come up in the sports supplement industry, I mean, sometimes absolutely next to zero in terms of research.
Well, thank you, Joe. Appreciate the information.
All right. We will definitely just leave it there. And thank you, Kori, for entertaining the questions from me.
Good topic.
And you guys, thanks again for watching and listening, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks, guys.